Transport efficiency is a cheap way to decrease carbon output in the environment just by increasing automobile fuel efficiency. One wedge can come from doubling the miles per gallon from 30 to 60 in the world's cars. For this method to be effective, car manufacturers may have to adjust and rethink how cars are made and the materials used. However, this method is good for active travelers because they will release the same amount of carbon emissions traveling double the distance. Transportation conservation is a simplistic way to reduce carbon emissions. A wedge could be achieved by cutting the miles traveled by all passenger vehicles in half. This could be possible by the increase in public mass transit and electronic communication, which would eliminate all the unnecessary miles traveled. Departments that run highways and urban design may have worries with this plan because they may need to design and implement more bus stations and ways to reach mass transit. Although the average traveler may be troubled by the large number of people traveling at once, taxpayers will not have issues because it is very cost efficient. CCS hydrogen is a developing way to displace the release of carbons into the atmosphere that is a result of burning hydrocarbon fuels. The goal of CCS hydrogen is to be able to use pure hydrogen as a fuel because the only emission product is water vapor. Pure hydrogen can be attained by burning fossil fuels. However, in order to refine this method, it is a necessity to isolate the capturable carbons. Some energy companies and taxpayers may not vote for this method because it requires building new infrastructure, which can be costly. Fuel switching electricity involves making a transition from coal electric plants to natural gas ones. Producing electricity with natural gas results in only about half of the emissions compared to coal. This wedge is not costly. The availability of natural gas may become a problem because it is a non-renewable resource. With this being said, the natural gas would have to ship more readily and worldwide 10 times as much as it does now. With wind electricity, it is a renewable energy source that can reduce coal-based electricity. Wind power is a very clean source of electricity that's only repercussion is the need for more land to put the large windmills. It is estimated that about 3% of U.S. land would be needed for these wind farms. This method to reduce carbon in the atmosphere has many benefits. However, it is immediately costly and would require someone to give up their backyard space, which many people refuse to do. Similar to wind electricity, solar electricity produces CO2-free and renewable energy. With solar energy, the demand for land for the arrays of PV solar panels is less vigorous because there are many options to put these panels on roofs and top of parking lots. Solar electricity's biggest downfall is its cost for the PV cell materials, which taxpayers would not agree with. Another issue might be for energy companies because, like wind, it is an intermittent energy source. The process of wind hydrogen is similar to that of CCS hydrogen, except the hydrogen does not come from fossil fuels, but instead from wind turbines in a process known as electrolysis. A major drawback is that it is half as efficient as wind energy and is fairly costly. But one of the major benefits is that it can be produced at small scales wherever it is needed. This would result in less money put into infrastructure for fuel distribution. Forest storage takes the idea of natural sinks and amplifies it to make a noticeable difference in opposite effect of what deforestation does to the atmosphere currently. By increasing plant biomass, by reducing deforestation and planting new forests, more carbon can be taken in through plants and trees. Therefore, it can't be in the atmosphere. This is a very cost-effective method to reduce carbon emissions. However, a major drawback is competing for land use, especially with companies that rely on deforestation to construct new urban development. Depending what role one plays in society will determine the scale number given. I feel the following judges will rate my wedge board in the following way. Taxpayers a 2 because there were several wedges on my board that were costly and needed access funding from the communities in order to efficiently implement these new methods. Energy companies a 3 because they will still have to supply energy, but they will have to adjust the new ways of producing energy and have to figure out how to supply these energy sources to the public. Environmental groups of 5 because every wedge I chose helped improve the state of the environment and a majority of my wedges were natural processes, such as the wind and solar electricity. Manufacturers a 2 because many of the strategies require a change in the method of making fuel and products. Also, they would have to build new infrastructure to deliver these new sources of energy to smaller scale users. Industrialized country governments would rate the wedge board a 3 because the list is a little pricey, but many of the methods to improve carbon emissions are realistic and attainable. With a country that has access to things such as electric communication and complex mass transit systems, it will help ease the transition of renovations in communities. Developing country governments would rate this a 1 because many of the costs and implementations are unrealistic in a country that is still developing. Some things are not out of reach, such as forest storage, but many of the wedges would not be realistic for the needs of the country.